Standing in front of the large, white canvas, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. The gallery was buzzing with life, a cacophony of laughter, music, and the soft rustle of silk dresses brushing against each other. Yet, here I was, isolated in my thoughts, the vibrant atmosphere around me fading into a dull hum. This was my first major exhibit in Manhattan, and instead of feeling thrilled, I was paralyzed by fear and self-doubt. "Claire, you've got this," I muttered to myself, trying to muster some confidence. The words felt hollow, echoing back at me like a cruel joke. I took a step back, eyeing my work with a critical gaze. The painting was a swirl of blues and oranges, evoking a sense of chaos that mirrored my inner turmoil. I had poured my heart and soul into every brushstroke, yet all I could see were the imperfections glaring back at me. "Is everything all right?" A voice broke through my reverie. I turned to see Sarah, my best friend and my most fervent supporter, standing beside me. Her auburn hair framed her face perfectly, and her green eyes sparkled with a mix of concern and excitement. "I don't know, Sarah. What if nobody likes it? What if they think I'm a fraud?" I sighed, crossing my arms tightly across my chest. "Stop it. You're an incredible artist, and this is your moment. Remember what we talked about. You need to believe in yourself," she said, her tone firm yet encouraging. I forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "You make it sound so easy. What if I trip over my own words during the speech?" "Well, then you trip. Everyone does at some point. Just be yourself, Claire. You're going to shine tonight." She squeezed my shoulder, and I felt a flicker of hope. As the crowd began to gather, I felt the butterflies in my stomach transform into a full-blown stampede. The murmurs of admiration for the other artists filled the air, and I couldn't help but feel like an imposter among them. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of fresh paint and polished wood, and tried to focus on the moment. "Claire, there you are." A familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. It was Marcus, a fellow artist and a friend from art school. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I felt a bit of my anxiety dissipate. "Hey, Marcus, are you excited?" I asked, forcing a smile as we embraced. "Absolutely. Your piece is going to blow everyone away. Just wait and see," he replied, his confidence bolstering my spirits slightly. "Thanks, I hope so." I glanced around, scanning the crowd, and noticed the elegance of the venue. The walls were adorned with stunning artwork, and the dim lighting created an intimate atmosphere. It was beautiful and overwhelming all at once. An hour passed, and I found myself standing at the entrance, nervously adjusting my hair. The exhibit was officially open, and people were already exploring the artwork. I could hear snippets of conversation, laughter, and clinking glasses. It was everything I had dreamed of, yet I felt like a ghost in my own life. "Claire," Sarah called, waving me over to a group of people gathered near my painting. "Come on, you need to meet people. This is your night." With a deep breath, I made my way over to the crowd. As I approached, I caught snippets of admiration for my work. "It's so raw and expressive," one woman said, her voice filled with awe. "Really captures the chaos of life," another added. I felt a rush of warmth at their comments, but it was still overshadowed by my self-doubt. Just as I was starting to engage in conversation, my eyes caught a glimpse of someone standing apart from the crowd. He was tall, with dark hair that fell just above his striking blue eyes. He had an air of confidence that seemed to draw people in, yet he remained detached, studying the artwork with an intense focus. "Who's that?" I whispered to Sarah, nodding in his direction. "That's Jake Reynolds. He's an art dealer and quite successful," she replied, her eyes widening with intrigue. "I've heard he has a keen eye for talent." Before I could respond, Jake turned his gaze toward me, and our eyes locked. Time seemed to freeze for a heartbeat. There was something magnetic about him, an energy that sent a jolt through me. I quickly looked away, feeling my cheeks flush. "Claire, you should go talk to him," Sarah urged, nudging me forward. I hesitated, my heart racing. What do I even say? "Just be yourself. You're an artist. Talk about your work, your inspiration," she encouraged, giving me a gentle push. With a deep breath, I made my way toward Jake, my heart pounding in my chest. As I approached, he turned, a charming smile spreading across his face. "Hi there, I'm Jake. This is stunning," he said, gesturing toward my painting. "Thank you. I'm Claire." I introduced myself, trying to sound casual despite the nerves bubbling inside me. "I love the colors you've chosen. They evoke such emotion," he remarked, his eyes sparkling with genuine interest. "Really? That means a lot coming from you. I've heard you have an incredible eye for art," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. He chuckled softly. "I try, but it's artists like you who make it all worthwhile. What inspired this piece?" I took a moment to gather my thoughts, feeling a connection with him that I hadn't anticipated. It's a reflection of my journey, the chaos of life and creativity. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, but there's beauty in that chaos too. "I can see that. Art has a way of capturing the turmoil we all experience, doesn't it?" he mused, leaning in slightly, his attention unwavering. "Yes, exactly. It's like putting your soul on display," I replied, feeling my confidence growing with each passing moment. We continued to talk, the conversation flowing effortlessly between us. I shared stories about my struggles and triumphs as an artist, while he spoke about his experiences in the art world. Every laugh, every shared glance felt charged with an undeniable chemistry that I couldn't ignore. As the night wore on, the gallery began to empty out, and the vibrant atmosphere shifted into a more intimate setting. The stars outside twinkled through the large windows, and I felt a sense of magic enveloping us. "Would you like to step outside for a moment?" Jake suggested, his voice low and inviting. "Sure," I replied, my heart racing as he led the way. We stepped into the cool night air, the sounds of the city providing a backdrop to our newfound connection. Standing under the stars, the world around us felt like a dream. "I have to say, I'm really glad I came tonight," he said, his gaze locking onto mine. "Meeting you has been the highlight." "Really?" I asked, a smile breaking across my face. "I feel the same way." In that moment, everything fell away, the doubts, the insecurities, the noise of the city. It was just him and me, standing in the glow of the streetlights. He leaned closer, and I could feel the warmth radiating from him, drawing me in. "Can I?" he started, hesitating for just a moment, as if weighing the significance of the moment. "Can I kiss you?" My heart raced as I nodded, unable to find my voice. He leaned in, and our lips met softly, igniting a spark that spread through every part of me. It was gentle yet electrifying, a promise of something beautiful blossoming between us. As we pulled away, breathless and smiling, I caught a glimpse of a woman watching us from the shadows across the street. She was cloaked in darkness, her expression unreadable. A chill ran down my spine, but before I could dwell on it, Jake took my hand, and the world around us faded once more. "Let's not let this be the last time we see each other," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'd like that," I replied, my heart swelling with hope. In that moment, under the stars, I felt like I was on the brink of something extraordinary, blissfully unaware of the secrets that lay ahead, waiting to unravel. The sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting soft patterns on the walls of Jake's apartment. I stirred awake, wrapping my arms around the warm, inviting form beside me. My fingers danced across his bare chest, tracing the lines of his muscles, still marveling at how I ended up here, in this moment. Last night felt like a dream, an explosion of laughter, stolen kisses, and whispered promises. As I blinked away the remnants of sleep, I couldn't help but smile, replaying the magic of our first encounter at the gallery. "Good morning," Jake murmured, his voice thick with sleep. He turned to me, his eyes a deep shade of blue, sparkling like the sky on a clear day. I felt my heart flutter as he grinned, his smile infectious. "Good morning," I replied, my voice still a little raspy. "I was beginning to think I'd have to wake you up." He chuckled, brushing a few strands of hair away from my face. "I could get used to this. Waking up next to you feels right. What are your plans for today?" I asked, feeling a twinge of hope at the thought of spending more time with him. Jake hesitated, and for a fleeting moment, a shadow crossed his face. But then he brightened, shaking his head as if to dispel the thought. "Nothing much. Just the usual. I was thinking I might take a look at some new pieces for the gallery. Maybe we could grab brunch first." "Brunch sounds perfect," I said, feeling a thrill of anticipation. I couldn't wait to explore the city with him, to dive deeper into the connection we had forged so quickly. As we got out of bed, I noticed the way the morning light painted his body, accentuating every dip and curve. I felt a rush of affection for him, a sense of comfort I hadn't experienced in a long time. We moved together effortlessly, our energy syncing as we prepared for the day. "Can I make you coffee?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. "Only if you promise to make it strong." "I need all the caffeine I can get today," I teased, and he laughed, the sound of melodious comfort in the morning air. Once in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the space, and I leaned against the counter, watching him work. He moved with an ease that was captivating, and I felt a flutter of excitement course through me. "Tell me more about your art," he said, pouring the coffee into 2 mugs. "What inspires you?" "Everything," I replied, my heart swelling with passion. "The city, the people, the emotions we carry. Sometimes I feel like I can paint the very essence of a moment. It's like capturing a little piece of eternity." Jake leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee and watching me intently. "I want to see your work. I want to understand what drives you. Maybe I'll show you my studio one day," I suggested, feeling a rush of vulnerability. "It's a little chaotic, but it's home." "I'd love that. It sounds like a glimpse into your world," he said, his voice sincere. Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter, interrupting our moment. I picked it up and saw Sarah's name flashing on the screen. "Hey, Claire. You won't believe what I heard about that guy you were with last night," she said breathlessly. I felt a flicker of unease as I glanced at Jake, who was now leaning against the fridge, his expression curious. "What is it?" Apparently, he's quite the notorious playboy. You know, the kind who leaves a trail of broken hearts in his wake. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sarah, don't be ridiculous. We had an amazing connection. I know him better than you think." "Claire, I'm just saying, be careful. I don't want to see you get hurt," she warned, her tone serious. "I appreciate your concern, but I really like him," I insisted, feeling defensive. "We had a great time together. Just promise me you'll keep your guard up. You deserve someone who's all in, not someone who's just playing games." "I promise," I replied, though my heart raced with uncertainty. I hated that I felt uneasy about Jake, but I couldn't deny the chemistry we shared. After hanging up, I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the nagging doubts Sarah had planted in my mind. "Everything okay?" Jake asked, concern etched on his face. "Yeah, it's just my friend checking in," I said, forcing a smile. "Nothing to worry about." He studied me for a moment, and I could feel the weight of his gaze. "Are you sure? You seem a bit off." I'm fine, I insisted, although I wasn't entirely convinced myself. We finished our coffee and decided to head out for brunch, the city buzzing with life as we stepped into the street. The sun was shining, and the vibrant energy of New York wrapped around us like a warm blanket. I took Jake's hand, intertwining our fingers, and felt a spark of electricity shoot through me. As we walked, we talked about our dreams, our aspirations, and the art scene in the city. Jake shared stories of the artists he'd worked with, his enthusiasm infectious. I found myself getting lost in his words, feeling a deeper connection with him as I listened. But as we reached the cafe, I noticed Jake's phone buzz in his pocket. He glanced at it, frowning slightly before shoving it back down. I felt a flicker of unease again. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Yeah, just work stuff," he replied, but I caught the tension in his voice. We settled at a small table outside, the bustling street providing the perfect backdrop for our brunch. I tried to push my worries aside, focusing instead on the delicious food and the warmth of Jake's presence. "This place is amazing," I said, taking a bite of my avocado toast. "I can't believe I've never been here before." "Consider it our special spot now," he said, a playful grin on his face. Just then, Jake's phone buzzed again. He glanced down, his expression shifting to one of tension. "Excuse me for a moment. I need to take this," he said, standing up abruptly. I watched as he walked a few feet away, his voice low and serious. My heart raced as I strained to hear snippets of his conversation, the way his brow furrowed, the tension in his shoulders. "Yeah, I know. I'll handle it," he said, his voice edged with frustration. I felt an unsettling knot form in my stomach. Who was he talking to? What could possibly be so urgent? My mind raced with possibilities, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When he returned, I tried to act normal, but the atmosphere had shifted. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "Yeah, just some issues at the gallery," he replied, but I could see the shadow of worry in his eyes. I wanted to press further, to dig deeper into whatever was bothering him, but I also didn't want to push him away. Instead, I reached across the table, taking his hand in mine. "You can talk to me, you know." He squeezed my hand, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. But as he looked away, I caught a glimpse of the conflict in his expression. The tension between us was palpable, and I couldn't help but wonder if the magical night we had shared was the calm before a storm. As we finished our meal, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something profound, something that could either draw us closer together or tear us apart. I just hoped that whatever secrets lay hidden in the shadows wouldn't be the end of us. As the sun dipped below the Manhattan skyline, casting a warm golden hue over the city, I found myself seated across from Jake at a quaint little Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet corner of Greenwich Village. The air was perfumed with the rich aromas of garlic and basil, but all I could focus on was the man in front of me. He looked incredibly handsome, his dark hair slightly tousled, and I couldn't help but admire the way his eyes sparkled with mischief and charm. Still, a nagging sensation curled in my stomach, a feeling I couldn't quite shake. "Claire," Jake said, leaning forward with a playful grin, "I promise you, this pasta is life-changing. You're going to love it." His enthusiasm was contagious, but as I smiled back, I couldn't ignore the way his gaze seemed to drift occasionally, as if something or someone had captured his attention beyond our table. "Right, life-changing," I replied, attempting to mirror his excitement. "You've certainly hyped it up enough. Do you always promise such grand experiences to every girl you take out?" I teased, hoping to lighten the mood, but a part of me wondered if it was too true. Jake laughed, a sound that sent a warm shiver through me. "Only the special ones. And you are definitely special, Claire." His eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, the world around us faded. But just as quickly, he was distracted again, his attention darting to the entrance of the restaurant. I couldn't help but frown slightly. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep the concern from my voice. My heart raced as I anticipated his answer. "Of course. Just, I thought I saw someone I knew." He brushed it off with a wave of his hand, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. I took a deep breath, my instincts screaming at me to dig deeper. "Jake, if there's something on your mind, you can tell me. I mean, we've been open with each other, haven't we?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms defensively, my heart thudding harder in my chest. He looked at me, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face. "It's really nothing, Claire. Just a busy night in the city, you know." He forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I couldn't ignore the sense of unease creeping in. The waiter arrived, interrupting our conversation, and I momentarily lost myself in the menu, opting for a classic spaghetti arrabbiata. As I placed my order, I could feel Jake's eyes on me, and when I looked up, he was watching me with an intensity that made my cheeks flush. "I really like this place," I said, trying to distract myself from the lingering doubts. "It has a cozy vibe, almost like something out of a movie." "Yeah," he replied, his voice softer now. "I thought you'd appreciate it. It's one of my favorites." There was a hint of sincerity in his tone, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I was overthinking things. After a few moments of light banter, laughter, and shared stories, I felt myself beginning to relax. Jake was charming, and I couldn't deny the chemistry between us. But just as I was starting to let my guard down, I spotted a familiar face entering the restaurant. Sarah, my best friend. My heart sank. I hadn't expected to see her here, and I certainly hadn't wanted her to witness my date, especially with the nagging suspicion that something was off with Jake. "Claire." "Jake." Sarah waved excitedly as she approached our table, her smile bright enough to illuminate the dimly lit room. "I didn't know you two were here together." "Hey, Sarah." I forced a smile, my insides twisting with discomfort. "What a surprise." "Yeah, just grabbing a quick bite," she said, glancing between Jake and me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Nice to see you again, Jake." "Likewise, Sarah," he replied, though I could sense a hint of tension in his voice. Sarah's eyes flicked to me, and I could almost see the gears turning in her head. "So, how's the date going?" she asked innocently, but I could hear the underlying tone of concern in her voice. "It's going well," I chirped, but my heart wasn't in it. "Great. Just wanted to stop by and say hi. I'll let you two get back to it," she said, but before she left, I caught a glimpse of her concerned expression. As she walked away, I turned back to Jake, who had gone unusually quiet. "She's great, isn't she?" I ventured, trying to keep the conversation alive. "Yeah, sure," he replied, his voice flat. "Are you okay?" I asked, my worry resurfacing. "You seem a bit off." "I'm fine, really," he insisted, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. The waiter returned with our meals, and I tried to focus on the delicious food before me, but the atmosphere had shifted. The laughter and flirtation had been replaced with an uncomfortable silence, and I couldn't help but feel that something was brewing beneath the surface. "Jake," I said cautiously, "if something's bothering you, I'd rather you just tell me." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just, I've been busy with work lately, and sometimes it gets overwhelming." "Is that all?" I pressed, feeling a mix of frustration and concern. "Honestly, Claire, it's nothing you need to worry about." His eyes met mine, but there was a flicker of something that sent my heart racing, the same apprehension I'd felt all evening. As we ate, I found myself lost in thought. Just then, the door swung open again, and in walked a woman who radiated confidence. She was stunning, with long legs, flowing hair, and a presence that could light up the entire room. I swallowed hard, my heart sinking as I watched Jake's expression change. "Do you know her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, yeah. Just someone from the gallery," he replied, but the way his eyes lingered on her told a different story. "Right," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of my earlier suspicions pressed heavily on me. As she approached our table, I felt a chill run down my spine. "Hey, Jake," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with familiarity. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Hey, Samantha," he replied, his smile wide and genuine, leaving me feeling like an intruder in my own date. "Who's this?" she asked, glancing at me with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "This is Claire," Jake introduced, his tone slightly defensive. "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Samantha," she said, extending her hand in a friendly gesture, but the underlying tension was palpable. "Nice to meet you too," I replied, forcing a smile as I shook her hand, my heart racing. I was just telling Jake about the new exhibit opening next week. "You should come," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. I started, but Jake cut in. "Yeah, I'll definitely be there. Claire and I will check it out together," he replied, and I could sense the underlying tension in his voice. "Great. I'll save you both a spot," Samantha said with a wink before she sauntered off, leaving me feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. As soon as she was out of earshot, I turned to Jake, my heart pounding. "So, you know her well?" "Not really," he shrugged, but his expression told me otherwise. "Just an acquaintance from work." "You seemed pretty chummy," I shot back, my voice sharper than intended. "Claire, come on." "It's nothing," he insisted, but I could hear the edge in his tone. "Nothing?" "It didn't look like nothing," I countered, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Let's not do this right now," he said, his voice low, but I could see the tension in his jaw. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "I'm just trying to understand, Jake. I don't want to feel like I'm competing with someone else in your life." "You're not," he said firmly, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. As we finished our meal, the atmosphere had shifted. I wanted to believe him, to trust him, but the seeds of doubt had been sown. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beneath the surface, something that could unravel everything we'd built in such a short time. I woke up the next morning with the sunlight pouring through the windows of Jake's apartment, casting a warm glow on everything it touched. I turned my head, catching a glimpse of him still asleep next to me, his dark hair tousled and his face relaxed in a way that made my heart flutter. The night before had felt like a fairy tale, an unexpected romance that ignited a passion in me I hadn't felt in years. Yet, as I lay there, the weight of the world began to settle on my chest. I quietly slid out of bed, careful not to wake him, and tiptoed to the kitchen. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and I poured myself a cup, hoping it would clear the fog of uncertainty that had started to creep in. As I waited for the coffee to cool, my mind drifted back to the moment we shared our first kiss beneath the stars. It was magical, but now, the memory felt tainted by the shadow of that mysterious woman I had seen lurking in the background. I was lost in thought when my phone buzzed on the counter, jolting me back to reality. It was Sarah, my best friend. I hesitated for a moment, but I knew I had to answer. "Claire, you're alive," she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of excitement and relief. "How was the rest of your night?" It was great, actually," I replied, trying to keep the hesitation out of my voice. "We talked a lot. There was this connection, you know?" "Yeah, but do you remember what I told you about Jake? He's a notorious playboy. I just don't want you to get hurt." Her tone shifted to concern, and I felt a pang of irritation. I know what you said, but I really think he's different. He's not like the others. I insisted, my voice firmer than I felt. I can feel it. Claire, please. Just be cautious. I don't want you to end up heartbroken, she warned. Before I could respond, I heard rustling from the bedroom, and Jake emerged, his eyes still groggy. He smiled at me, and my heart melted all over again. Hey there, he said, running a hand through his hair. What are you doing up so early? Just making some coffee, I replied, trying to sound casual. Want some? Sure, I'll take a cup, he said and walked over to the counter. I felt a rush of warmth as he leaned against it, his presence radiating comfort and safety. We exchanged light banter while I poured his coffee, but the lingering thoughts from my conversation with Sarah gnawed at me. I wanted to believe in what we had, but doubt began to creep in like a thief in the night. After breakfast, we decided to take a walk in Central Park. The sun was shining, and the air was crisp, the kind of day that made everything feel alive. We strolled hand in hand, sharing stories about our childhoods, our dreams, and our fears. I felt a connection with Jake that I hadn't experienced before, but the unease lingered, a shadow lurking at the edges of my happiness. As we passed a small cafe, Jake suggested we grab some pastries. You have to try the cinnamon rolls here. They're the best in the city, he said, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. I couldn't help but smile at his excitement. After we finished our pastries, we sat on a bench overlooking the lake, watching the ducks paddle by. You know, Jake said, turning to me, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You're different from anyone I've met. Different how? I asked, my curiosity piqued. He leaned closer, his expression serious. You're real. You don't put on a facade like some people do in this city. You're genuine, and that's refreshing. His words warmed me, but just as quickly, the feeling was overshadowed by the nagging suspicion that had been building since last night. Jake, I began hesitantly, unsure of how to voice my concerns. I need to ask you something. Sure, anything, he replied, his tone inviting. It's just, I found something in your jacket this morning, I said, my heart racing. There was lipstick on it. A woman's lipstick. His expression shifted instantly, and the warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by a flicker of tension. Claire, I can explain. Explain what? That you have some other woman in your life? I interrupted, frustration bubbling to the surface. I thought we had something real, but now I'm starting to wonder. He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to find the right words. It's not what you think. I have a complicated past, but I promise you're different. I don't want anyone else but you. Then why was there lipstick on your jacket? My voice was rising, and I could feel the anger and hurt mixing in my chest. I was at a charity event last week, he said, his voice steady despite the tension. I spoke with a woman there. She's a friend of a friend. I didn't think anything of it, I swear. Jake, I wish I could believe you, I said, tears stinging my eyes. But it feels like there's so much you're not telling me. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back, needing space. You have to trust me, Claire. I'm trying to move forward. I'm trying to be better, and I want you to be part of that. But can you honestly say that I'm the only one you want? I pressed, my heart pounding in my chest. He hesitated, and in that moment, my heart cracked a little more. I want you, Claire. You have to believe me, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. I shook my head, feeling the weight of betrayal settle heavily on my shoulders. Trust is built on honesty, Jake, and right now, I don't feel like I can trust you. I stood up abruptly, leaving him sitting on the bench, his expression a mix of regret and frustration. I walked away, each step feeling heavier than the last. My heart was racing, and I felt an overwhelming wave of doubt wash over me. As I made my way back to his apartment, I replayed our conversation in my mind, searching for any glimmer of hope. But the lipstick on his jacket loomed large, a tangible reminder of the uncertainty that had crept into our relationship. When I arrived at his apartment, I stood at the door, my hand hovering over the knob. I could hear him moving around inside, but I felt paralyzed. I didn't know if I could face him again, not when everything felt so fragile. Finally, I took a deep breath and opened the door. Jake looked up, and the moment our eyes met, I felt the weight of the world crashing down on me. "Claire," he started, but I held up a hand to stop him. "I need to go," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Go? What do you mean?" His brow furrowed, confusion and worry etched on his face. "I need space to think," I replied, my voice trembling. "I don't know if I can do this right now." "Please, just talk to me," he pleaded, rising to his feet. "I don't want to lose you." I can't right now," I said, the tears finally spilling down my cheeks. I turned and walked away, feeling my heart shatter with each step. The doubt and uncertainty weighed heavily on my mind, and I knew I had to confront the truth of our situation. As I stepped out into the bustling streets of New York City, I felt a profound sense of loss settle around me, overshadowing the bright promise of the day. I stood in my cramped studio, surrounded by half-finished canvases and splatters of paint that told the story of my tumultuous emotions. The sunlight streamed in through the small window, casting a warm glow on the mess I had created, but instead of feeling inspired, I felt lost. My heart ached as I recalled the heated argument with Jake, the way his eyes had looked at me, full of desperation and sincerity, yet all I could think about was the lipstick-stained jacket that had shattered my trust. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my palette and squeezed out vibrant colors, reds, blues, and yellows, each one a reflection of the chaos inside me. I dipped my brush into the paint, letting it glide across the canvas as I poured every ounce of my frustration and pain into my work. Each stroke was cathartic, an attempt to reclaim my sense of self in the wake of betrayal. The colors danced together, swirling and merging in a chaotic yet beautiful way, mirroring the tumultuous feelings that churned within me. "Claire, you need to stop dwelling on this." Sarah's voice broke through my concentration. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "You're an amazing artist, and you can't let him ruin your passion." I paused, looking up at her. How can I focus on my art when I feel like this? It's like I'm painting with my heart in pieces. She stepped into the room, surveying the canvas I had been working on. "Then paint that. Paint your heartbreak. It's raw, it's real, and it's what you do best. Use it." Her words resonated with me, and I nodded, turning back to the canvas. I continued to add layers, the colors becoming more intense, more chaotic. But what if I'm just wasting my time? What if he's really just a playboy who's going to hurt me again? "He's not worth your energy if he can't see what he's losing," Sarah replied firmly. "You deserve someone who appreciates you, Claire. Someone who sees you for who you really are." As I painted, the phone buzzed on the table beside me, snapping me out of my artistic trance. I glanced at the screen, seeing Jake's name flash across it. My heart raced, but I ignored it. I wouldn't let him disrupt my focus again. Hours passed, and I lost myself in the rhythm of creation. With each stroke, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I was reclaiming my identity, my voice. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. Jake had ignited something in me, a spark I hadn't felt in years, and now it flickered dangerously close to extinguishing. Later that evening, I stepped back to admire my work. The canvas was a whirlwind of colors, dark and light intertwined, a visual representation of my conflict. It was raw, it was real, And it was me. But just as I was about to feel a sense of accomplishment, my phone buzzed again. This time, I decided to answer. Claire. Jake's voice came through, a mixture of excitement and tension. Can we talk? About what, Jake? I responded, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor of vulnerability lurking beneath my words. About us. I need you to listen, he insisted, urgency lacing his tone. I don't think there's anything left to say, I replied, my heart aching at the thought of his voice, the way he had looked at me the last time we were together. Please, just give me a chance. I've realized things about myself about us. I want to make this right. I hesitated, torn between the desire to hear him out and the instinct to protect myself from further heartbreak. Jake, I don't know if I can trust you. You said you wanted to be different, but how can I believe that? I know I messed up. I've been an idiot. But I'm willing to fight for you, he implored, and I could almost hear the sincerity in his voice. I'll show you how much you mean to me. I sighed, feeling the weight of his words. Where would we even begin? You've got a history, Jake. And it's not just about you anymore. I know, but I want to break free from that. I want to be with you, Claire. You've changed me, he said, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Can we meet? Just to talk. I'll think about it, I replied cautiously, my heart racing. I hung up, contemplating the turmoil within me. I was torn between wanting to believe in the possibility of redemption and the fear of being let down yet again. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed our conversation in my mind. Just when I thought I had a grip on my feelings, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Sarah. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow morning. I have something to share. The next morning, I found myself sitting across from Sarah in our favorite cafe, a steaming cup of coffee in front of me. I was still reeling from the conversation with Jake, my mind a swirl of confusion and uncertainty. Okay, spill it, I urged Sarah, sensing there was something important she needed to say. I've been talking to a mutual friend of yours and Jake's, she began, her tone serious. And they mentioned something that might change how you see him. What do you mean? I asked, my heart sinking. What did they say? She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. They said that Jake has been trying to get his life together. He's been distancing himself from the people who kept dragging him down. They think he genuinely cares about you. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by doubt. But what about the other women? The lipstick? I can't just ignore that. Claire, everyone has a past. The question is, what are they willing to do to change? Sarah replied, her eyes earnest. You need to decide if he's worth the risk. If you love him, you owe it to yourself to find out. As I pondered her words, I felt an unexpected wave of determination wash over me. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe I owed it to myself to see if Jake was truly committed. I could feel the fire of my passion reigniting, not just for my art, but for the possibility of love. Okay, I said, my voice steady. I'll meet him, but it's going to be on my terms. The rest of the day passed in a blur of anticipation. I spent hours in my studio, the canvas calling to me as if it understood my turmoil. I painted with renewed fervor, pouring every ounce of my uncertainty and hope into my work. My heart raced at the prospect of seeing Jake again, but I reminded myself that I needed to protect myself. Later that evening, I prepared for the meeting, choosing an outfit that made me feel confident. I stared at my reflection, practicing my lines in my head. I wouldn't let him charm me again without earning it first. I was ready to confront him, to demand the honesty I deserved. When I arrived at the gallery for the exhibit opening, my heart pounded in my chest. The atmosphere was electric, the excitement palpable as art enthusiasts mingled around. I scanned the crowd, searching for his familiar face. And then I saw him. Jake stood across the room, his presence magnetic. He looked dapper in a tailored suit, the kind that accentuated the strong lines of his jaw and the intensity of his gaze. But just as I felt a rush of exhilaration, my heart dropped when I noticed he was talking to another woman. She was stunning, an elegant figure with striking features, laughing at something Jake had said. My stomach twisted painfully as I watched them, the warmth of hope quickly replaced by cold dread. Maybe Sarah was wrong. Maybe he hadn't changed at all. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I turned away, fighting back tears as I focused on the artwork around me. I had come here to reclaim my passion, not to be reminded of my pain. But the sight of him with her was a dagger to my heart. Claire. Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see her rushing toward me. You okay? You look pale. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. But my eyes were drawn back to Jake, who was now looking in my direction. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I could see the surprise on his face. Did he expect me to just ignore what I had seen? Let's get some fresh air, Sarah suggested, sensing my distress. I nodded, grateful for her presence, as we stepped outside the gallery into the cool evening air. But even as I stood there, breathing in the crispness of the night, I couldn't shake the image of Jake and the beautiful stranger from my mind. Do you want me to talk to him? Sarah asked cautiously, concern etched on her face. No, I replied firmly. I need to handle this myself. I don't know what I feel right now, but I can't face him like this. And as I stood there, the weight of uncertainty bearing down on me, I realized that my heart was at war with itself. Could I still trust him? Did I want to fight for something that felt so precarious? I had finally made the decision to walk away from Jake. My heart felt heavy, a weight that pressed down on my chest as I stepped out of the gallery, the vibrant colors of my artwork fading into the background. I needed to escape the memories, the laughter that now felt like an echo of a cruel joke. As I walked down the bustling streets of Manhattan, the noise of the city blended into a dull hum, mirroring the turmoil brewing inside me. I had just reached the corner of the block when I heard a familiar voice that made me pause. It was the mysterious woman I had seen lurking the night of my exhibit, her silhouette haunting my thoughts since that night. I pressed myself against the wall, curiosity getting the better of me. I know you're trying to protect him, she said, her tone sharp yet laced with what seemed like concern. But you need to understand, he's not the same Jake he used to be. He's trying to change. I strained to hear more, my heart racing. Was she really defending him? I just don't want him to fall back into those old patterns, the woman continued. He's been through too much already. You don't know what he's been trying to escape from. I leaned in closer, my breath hitching in my throat. The truth hung in the air, tantalizingly close, yet so far away. I needed to know who she was and what she meant by those old patterns. I do care about him, she said, her voice softening. He's my brother, Claire. I've watched him struggle, and he's finally found someone who makes him happy. But he's scared that he'll lose you, just like he lost everything else. My heart dropped. She was Jake's sister? The revelation struck me like a wave crashing against the shore, pulling away the sand beneath my feet. Suddenly, all the pieces began to fit together. The tension, the secrets, everything made sense in that moment. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, confusion, sadness, but most of all, an unexpected flicker of hope. Before I could process it all, I turned around, ready to confront Jake, to demand answers. But I didn't need to look far. He stood there, his expression a mixture of relief and apprehension, as if he had been searching for me all along. Claire. His voice cut through the noise of the city, and I felt a strange sense of urgency in his tone. I'm so glad I found you. Jake, I started, my voice wearing. I heard everything. Your sister, she told me about your past. He blinked, visibly taken aback. You spoke to her? I didn't want you to find out this way. Why didn't you tell me? I interrupted, my heart racing. Why keep me in the dark about who you really are? I was trying to protect you, he said, stepping closer, his hands held out in a placating gesture. My past is messy, Claire. I didn't want you to see me as that person. I've been trying to distance myself from everything that I used to be. Then why didn't you just be honest with me? I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I thought we had something real. I thought you were different. I am different, he insisted, his voice rising slightly. You have to believe me. Since the moment I met you, I wanted to be a better man. You inspire me, Claire. You're the light in my darkness. I searched his eyes, looking for the truth behind his words. There was desperation there, a raw vulnerability that tugged at my heartstrings. But what about your sister? I asked quietly. What about the other women? Those were mistakes of a past I'm trying to leave behind, he said, his voice softening. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you without scaring you away. I didn't want your image of me to shatter. I just wanted a chance to show you that I could be the man you deserve. I swallowed hard, my heart torn between the fear of being hurt again and the longing to believe in the connection we had. It's just so much to take in. I need time to process this, Jake. I understand, he said, his expression shifting to one of understanding. But please, can we start fresh? I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm serious about us. I don't want to lose you. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. I could feel the weight of his gaze on me, pleading for a chance. Can we really move forward from this? I asked, my voice trembling. Yes, he said, stepping closer. I promise I'll be honest with you from now on. No more secrets, no more lies. I want to build something real with you, Claire. In that moment, something stirred within me, a flicker of hope, a desire to believe that love could conquer the misunderstandings that had threatened to tear us apart. I stepped back, letting the distance between us close just a fraction more. Okay, I said slowly, feeling the tremble of my heart. But it's going to take time. I need to know I can trust you completely. I'll earn your trust, he said earnestly. I swear. I'll show you that I'm not that man anymore.
Eu minto matitomi. I no dead feeling a varme spread frumi. Then let's start by being honest with each other. No more honey away, no more eating. Dio reside, a small smile breaking through his earlier tension. Let's take it one day at a time. As we sat there, I noticed the world around us faded into the background. The bustling streets of New York, the sounds of loud music, everything became a blur as if focused on Jake. The fear of losing him melted away, replaced by a tentative excitement for what lay ahead. Can we go for a walk? I asked, feeling the wash of fresh air around us, want to talk more about everything. Absolutely, Ron replied, his eyes getting up. I the love that. As we walk hand in hand down the vibrant streets, I could feel the weight of the past beginning to lift. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to embrace it, together.